2,000 years ago, Jesus described a condition of humanity that would emerge in the last days, a state of being so specific, so unusual, that no generation before ours could fully comprehend it, not because they lacked faith, but because the world he described did not yet exist. Scholars have debated it for centuries. Theologians have offered dozens of interpretations, but only now, in this generation, does the prophecy begin to make terrifying sense. What if the prophecy we dismissed is already unfolding? Jesus gave many warnings. He spoke of wars, earthquakes, famines, and false messiahs. These were clear, recognizable, easy to track across history. But there is one prophecy he spoke that stands apart from all the others, not because it is vague, but because it describes something humanity had never experienced before. Something that would span generations, something that early followers could not have imagined, no matter how faithful they were. This prophecy was recorded, preserved in Scripture. But for centuries, it was rarely emphasized. Pastors avoided it. Theologians debated its meaning. Commentaries offered cautious interpretations. Because the truth is, no one knew what to do with it. The world Jesus described had not yet arrived, until now. So what did he say? And why does it matter more today than at any other point in human history? The prophecy appears in Matthew chapter 24. Jesus sits on the Mount of Olives. His disciples approach him privately and ask a question that has echoed through 2 millennia. What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Jesus responds with a series of warnings, wars and rumors of wars. Nation rising against nation, earthquakes in various places, famines, persecutions, false prophets. These signs are familiar. They have occurred repeatedly throughout history. But then he says something different, something that shifts the tone entirely. He says, "And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold." Not some, many. Not hatred will increase. Love will grow cold. This is not about the rise of evil. It is about the decline of love. And that distinction changes everything. Because evil has always existed, wars have ravaged every generation. Betrayal, violence, corruption. These are ancient patterns. But what Jesus describes here is something else, a condition where love itself, the fundamental human capacity for connection, compassion, and care, begins to fade. Not because people become monsters, but because something in the fabric of human relationships begins to unravel. And when the disciples heard this, they did not understand. How could they? They lived in a world where community was survival, where families stayed together for generations, where neighbors depended on one another, where isolation was rare and connection was constant. The idea that love could simply grow cold without catastrophic cause would have seemed impossible. But Jesus saw what they could not. He saw our world. For centuries, theologians struggled with this prophecy. Some interpreted it as a general moral decline. Others saw it as a reference to persecution weakening the church. A few suggested it meant apostasy, believers abandoning the faith under pressure. But none of these interpretations fully captured the weight of what Jesus said. Because the Greek word used here is agape, not romantic love, not friendship. Agape, the selfless, unconditional love that binds humanity together. The love that makes a stranger help another stranger. The love that moves a mother to sacrifice for her child. The love that holds communities, families, and nations together. And Jesus said this love would grow cold. Not disappear, not be destroyed, but grow cold. Like a fire that slowly dies, like warmth that fades into numbness. Why did scholars struggle to explain this? Because for most of history, it made no sense. Humanity has always been capable of cruelty, But love, especially familial love, communal love, has been a constant. Even in the darkest periods of history, people clung to one another. They formed bonds. They sacrificed for their children. They mourned their dead. They cared. But something has changed. In the last century, humanity entered a new phase. Not through war, not through plague, but through progress. We built technologies that connected us to millions while isolating us from the person next door. We created systems that made survival possible without community. We developed ideologies that elevated the individual above the collective. And slowly, imperceptibly, something began to shift. Studies now show that loneliness has reached epidemic levels, not just in one nation, but globally. Families are fractured. Neighbors do not know each other's names. Entire generations report feeling disconnected, unseen, unknown. Suicide rates climb. Birth rates fall. And in the wealthiest, most technologically advanced societies on Earth, people report feeling more isolated than at any point in recorded history. This is not about morality. This is about connection. And Jesus saw it coming. He described a world where lawlessness would abound, not just crime, but a general breakdown of order, trust, and mutual responsibility. A world where systems fail, where institutions crumble, where people stop believing in anything larger than themselves. And in that world, love grows cold. Not because people choose evil, but because they stop choosing each other. Look at the signs: parents and children estranged over ideology, marriages dissolving at unprecedented rates, friendships replaced by digital avatars, communities fractured by tribalism, and beneath it all, a quiet, pervasive numbness, a coldness that no one can quite name, but everyone feels. This is what Jesus warned about, and he was right. But why did he frame it this way? Why connect the growing coldness of love to the increase of lawlessness? Because Jesus understood something most people miss. Love is not just an emotion, it is the foundation of order. When love fades, everything else collapses. Laws lose their meaning, justice becomes arbitrary, truth becomes negotiable, and society fractures into 1,000 isolated fragments, each person defending their own reality, their own truth, their own survival. This is not the end, but it is a sign, a marker, a condition that Jesus said would define the generation that sees his return. Not wars alone, not earthquakes alone, but a world where love, the binding force of humanity, begins to fail. And he said this so that when we see it, we would recognize the time, not with fear, but with awareness. Understanding this prophecy changes everything. Because if Jesus was describing our world, then the other signs he mentioned take on new urgency: the deception, the tribulation, the cosmic disturbances. These are not random events scattered across history. They are converging, and the coldness of love is the soil in which they grow. This connects to everything we have explored: the fall of Lucifer, a being who chose pride over love; the angels imprisoned in the Euphrates, creatures whose rebellion fractured the divine order; the hidden history before Adam, a world that existed and fell before humanity even began. All of these mysteries share a common thread: the consequences of severed connection, the cost of turning away from love, and now, in our generation, we see it unfolding on a global scale, not as punishment, but as pattern. A pattern Jesus identified 2,000 years ago with perfect clarity. So what do we do with this? Jesus did not give this prophecy to paralyze us. He gave it so we would see, so we would understand, so we would choose differently. Because love growing cold is not inevitable for every individual. It is a condition of the age. But within that age, there are those who resist. who hold on, who refuse to let the fire die. And perhaps that is the true meaning of the prophecy. Not a forecast of doom, but a call to vigilance, a reminder that in the days when love grows cold, those who keep it burning become lights in the darkness, witnesses to a truth the world is forgetting, proof that connection, compassion, and care still matter, even when the culture around them says otherwise. Jesus was not describing fear, he was describing a test. And every generation that has ever lived has wondered if they would face it. But ours does not have to wonder. We are living it. The question is no longer, will this happen? The question is, what will we do now that it has? The prophecy no one could explain is now the prophecy no one can deny. Jesus saw our world. He named our condition. And he was right. If this resonated with you, you need to see the full picture. Our previous episodes dive deeper into the mysteries that connect to this moment. The story of Lucifer, from glory to the curse, reveals how the first rebellion set the pattern for all that followed. The angels imprisoned in the Euphrates uncovers the beings waiting for their appointed hour, and what existed before Adam explores the hidden history that Scripture only hints at. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notification bell, because the mysteries we are uncovering are not random, they are connected, and the deeper we go, the clearer the picture becomes. Leave a comment below. Which prophecy do you think Jesus was referring to? Do you see the signs he described in the world around you? We want to hear your perspective. The next episode will reveal something even more unsettling, a prophecy about the mark of the beast that connects ancient commerce, modern technology, and a system no one will be able to escape. The pieces are falling into place, and what comes next will challenge everything you thought you understood. The veil is lifting, and the truth has been waiting for those willing to see it.